See, the empowerment is not in the choice.
No, it's not.
The empowerment is in the information.
Yes, it's in the knowledge that you have. Hi.
Hi. Bless you.
Thank you. Bless you.
Hey friends, and welcome back to the Blossoming Beauties YouTube channel. Today we have a friend with us. Michelle is one of my best friends. I've known her for about, we're never really sure how long it's been. It feels like a lifetime, but at least 11 years.
At least 11 years.
At least 11 years.
We're
Do you
lifers.
really remember life before I came into it?
No.
What are we going to talk about today,
We're talking
friend?
about abortion.
We're going to talk about abortion. I am so excited that Michelle agreed to do this video for us because she has an incredible story. She's a woman that has done the work to pursue health and freedom for herself and then to set up her boys. She's the mother of 3 incredible young men, and to set them up for a path of prosperity in their own lives of wholeness and freedom. She's worked in abortion recovery. She has worked towards her doctorate in perinatal psychology. Public health.
But I am exposed to perinatal psychology. That was a big impact in my doctorate program.
She knows a lot about the topic. And she's a doula. She's actually been a doula for my 2 nieces and my nephew. She's been in the birthing room for all 3 of them. So she's more than a friend. She is family, and I'm so glad that she is a part of the Blossoming Beauties tribe. I wouldn't be who I am or where I'm at today if it wasn't for the love and support of this friend. And she's just wise, she's kind, she's tender-hearted. She's my like super merciful, compassionate, like she's almost like a little, I feel like she's extreme. She'll be like, yeah, you want to put your finger in a socket? Do it. I'll be right here cheering you on. And I'm like, don't put your finger in a socket.
Figure out why you shouldn't do it again. But if you need to do it,
nah, yeah, she's pushed me off some cliffs in my life.
And then just a suggestion, go look at the cliff, not like go over the cliff.
Yeah, not this one. I'm all or nothing.
Look at the view. No.
Meanwhile, she'll get mad at me when I call her out.
There she goes. Yes, we you know, that's what humbling does to you.
Yeah, we've humbled each other quite a bit in our journey. Probably just the first of multiple videos we're gonna do together.
Yay!
But we're diving in deep. We're gonna talk about abortion today. Why do you think so many women choose to deny that their abortion has impacted their lives?
That is a great question. I think it just comes down to we have to convince ourselves, maybe survive through it, or to justify whatever decision that we're making. And then in order to keep justifying it, we have to prove it. So we'll stay in it, we'll keep it a secret, we won't expose it, we won't tell the truth about it, because it's just, we can't, it would be too painful.
Let's just go right ahead and start, Michelle. Do you want to start by maybe just sharing a little bit about your first pregnancy and what led you to having an abortion?
Sure. It's a big question because it's just not a simple answer. For me, I found out I was pregnant, had been with my boyfriend at the time since I was 16, and I think I was 22 at the time. I remember when I was 16 and I had met my boyfriend, my mom thought it would be best to put me on birth control. Fast forward, I got pregnant, and I had been exposed in college to some dorm roommates that had talked about their abortions, and they just made it sound just like simple, you know, dental cleaning, you know, like, oh, it was just referenced in the background of, you know, conversation. So when I got pregnant, it was almost an instant thought in my head of, oh, well, I'll just have an abortion. My boyfriend at the time did not want me to, but I convinced myself of a lot of things. I convinced myself, first off, that nobody could know about it. You know, I didn't want to be a single mom. I convinced myself that my education was more important. I convinced myself that my boyfriend, the father of the baby, his drug addiction would affect the baby. and the baby would come out with many issues. I convinced myself of many things at that time and went through it anyway. I didn't even have enough money to actually have the abortion, so I had to ask a friend of mine to help me. And I got a ride from a friend to the clinic, went to the clinic. There was maybe 2-3 people in there with me, other patients in there, and wasn't really friendly clinic. It wasn't like, oh, hi, you're here. It was just like, sign this, sign this, sign this, and that was pretty much it. And I remember going back into the room, putting on a gown, laying on a table, and my only experience with doctors was the doctor that I'd had since childhood, so I expected some kind of relationship or some kind of humanness to the contact, and there was not. The nurse set me up, she prepped, and then the doctor came in. I don't even think he looked at me. He just sat down in his stool in front of me and turned on a machine and inserted an instrument inside me, and I felt pretty much a tugging and a pulling, and in that moment I felt that my life had been sucked out of me. That was the feeling that I had left that day with. And it happened fast. Was sent to the recovery room, and I think there was like 3 other girls in recovery chairs next to me, maybe 4 of us in the room, and I remember them giving me a cookie and some orange juice, like a simple blood donation. And maybe 45 minutes later they let me go, and my friend was out there waiting for me, and so we left and we met my brother. We went to Denny's for lunch. I remember just sitting at Denny's, just numb, just like numb, and it was just the beginning of being numb for many, 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 many years of numbness. So that was the procedure. That was the day itself.
Well, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And then we'll go in a little bit further. Your boyfriend at the time was against it.
He was against it, yes.
How did he handle your choice?
He handled it, I think, pretty much. He had told his family, so his family knew about it, and they got upset about it. To me, he just handled it like he handled everything else, because he was involved in drinking and drugs and partying, so...
So he was numbing out too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Why do you think the girls that you knew that influenced the choice that you ended up making talked about it like it was getting a tooth pulled?
I think they were just numb to it. We convince ourselves once we do that, we rationalize. Truly, I rationalized for years why I did it, and my reasons for doing it were valid to me at the time. So I did go on to continue my education. I did get pregnant again 6 months later. So when I found out I was pregnant again, same dad, because I was still with my boyfriend, even though the relationship had gotten even more toxic and physical at this point.
Now that's quite common after abortions. Would you agree? In the experience you've had working with women, that it negatively impacts the relationship between the man and the woman?
Right. You just don't discuss it. It's just a problem that was fixed. And that's what a lot of women think is, I just need to fix this problem and move on with my life and get back to my normal life. But honestly, your life will never be normal again. As much as you try to make it normal, as much as you convince yourself it's normal, it's always in the background, playing its voice, its whisper in everything that you choose to do. Even in your femininity, how you are as a wife, how you are as a mom, it plays itself out for sure. Because
you ended up going on and furthering your education, again, working towards a doctorate. You ended up getting married. So you had she is a mom of 3 born sons.
3 boys!
3, and they're amazing young men. She was raised amazing young men. And I think, Michelle, that's just a testimony to the mercy of God. You said, if I hadn't had my abortion, I wouldn't have had Sheldon.
Truly.
I think having Sheldon was God's mercy on your life. It was like he was giving you another chance to choose life.
I was so stuck on the fact that I had had an abortion that I didn't realize oh, you did choose life. You know, and one of the things that women come across when they find out they're pregnant in a situation that is not planned is that choice for adoption. And I'm sure many can testify. I've heard many women say that that's not even an option at the time, which I was right there. No, I don't want anybody else raising my baby. Like that was worse than having an abortion and actually killing my baby. And it wasn't until later, many years later, that I saw the deception of that thought in itself. Because why would I not choose to give life not only to this child, but also help somebody else who can't have a baby expand their family and give life to that family? So lots of deception happens in a crisis pregnancy.
We don't call it crisis pregnancy anymore, huh? We call it unplanned pregnancy.
We do call it unplanned, but it is a definite crisis. Politically correct.
Politically correct. I think it's something that we are told in our culture that we cannot call it a crisis pregnancy anymore. It's just an unplanned pregnancy, but it really is a crisis.
It's a crisis.
It is a crisis. I don't know why we have to dilute what it is for a woman when you don't plan on getting pregnant and you don't want to get pregnant and you get that positive pregnancy test. Your body goes into crisis mode. You're not thinking clearly. And unfortunately, we are inundated with this doctrine in our culture that abortion is the solution. The problem with that is it's an industry. We're basically conditioned by people who really make a profit off of the birth control,
off of the fetal tissue that's coming from abortions, because honestly, it's stem cells. It's stem cells. You know, no matter what age of pregnancy you have, 12 weeks. Oh, we have to do it before 12 weeks, otherwise the price will go up. Some states who say it's legal to do to the point of
full
term. The stem cells that are profitable. It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
I just did a video earlier this week on Do Not Be Deceived, and Michelle just watched it. But there's such a string of deception in this whole sexual revolution, feminist, sexual liberty, my body, my choice. Feminism. I mean, there's so much deception woven into it. And we want to think that it is really for our best interest. It sounds good at first thought. I should have the freedom to choose what I want to do. We should have the freedom to choose what we want to do. The problem is we're not educating our people.
No,
we're not giving them truth. And so anything hidden is now deceptive. If we were actually being told, yes, you can have an abortion, but here are the facts statistically, then if you choose to do it, you choose to do it. But I believe from my experience working in a pregnancy center, and I'm sure you'll agree with this too, that when we actually start tearing down the veil of deception, not because we're money motivated, we're not making money from sharing the truth with you and helping you choose a healthy choice for yourself. We don't profit from that. But in empowering you with information, see, the empowerment is not in the choice.
No, it's not.
The empowerment is in the information.
Yes, it's in the knowledge that you have.
And we actually met at
the Alternatives Pregnancy Center.
We met at a pregnancy.
Yeah. She was a sexual health educator. I was a volunteer.
You volunteered as a lay counselor there, right? And I also was a lay counselor is a non-professional counselor that is specifically trained in a focused area. We would meet with young women and couples that were coming in for pregnancy tests or looking for what their options were. We weren't there to force a decision on them, but to just present their options.
But we're so quick to just take one view and go with that and not even open up our minds, to not even use this brain to be like, oh, okay, well, we just think, oh, if I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, this can be my only choice, this is my only choice. But it's like, well, and there'll be no consequences, It's really quick. Now you can actually get a pill in the mail and you can have your abortion at home and there'll be no consequences. When you're laying on the floor and
bleeding
you're
out in your bathroom,
hemorrhaging and you're in pain
all alone.
and
And you don't want anyone to know?
And you have to actually pick up this, product of conception that is a child that has a heartbeat that starts at 20 days. So there's actually humanness to it before you even know you're pregnant half the time. The heart is beating, yeah. There's no easy way around it. But, go on and fool yourself if you think it's going to be harmless.
Girls that would come into our center that had been to Planned Parenthood, what kind of stories would you hear?
Oh, a lot of the same things that I was just believing in myself. Oh, you don't want this to ruin your life. You have, more ahead of you. This child will, financially, you can't handle this right now. Just, they give you a lot of false information. But you have to remember that it is truly a business. And I too had convinced myself of a lot of things. I convinced myself that this baby wasn't really a baby. It was just cells, there's no life to it yet. I convinced myself that, it would just be a simple fix, a simple procedure. But as I myself had to face it, and how I had to face the situation when I was in my doctorate program, I was assigned in one of my classes to do a debate, and they gave us the topic. We didn't get to choose, but the topic that they assigned me was pro-life. And I had convinced myself that I was pro-choice because I had been covering up my own abortion. I had been rationalizing it, making sure that everything that I did would justify the fact that I had chose an abortion. So when I was assigned to debate and be on the pro-life side, I had to start doing research on exactly what happened, during abortion, the consequences, the effects, psychological, physically, emotionally. I started to do my research, and I started to see myself in all of the research. I saw my emotional wounds. I saw the physical wounds. I actually joined a group called PACE.
I remember PACE.
It was, PACE.
I remember PACE.
And I was just doing it for research purposes. Like, I'm just going to go get some research because I have to do this for class.
So you weren't even going to it because you acknowledged that you had some areas of healing.
Not at
You were literally
all.
just going it emotionally unattached. I'm just going because I need research.
Had my pen, had my notebook, looking at everybody else. And there was probably like 21 women in this group.
Wow.
And I was just observing, taking notes, listening to their stories. When I had to share, it would just be a surface share, da-da-da-da-da. And it wasn't until the very last day when we had a ceremony where we honored the baby as an actual baby, and a ceremony of kind of like a funeral type thing, that that was it. The dam busted open, floodgates, and I could not stop crying, and I couldn't even understand why I was crying. I was just uncontrollably sobbing, and I think that was when God just opened up the wound enough, because he only opens it up enough for us. He's a gentleman. He doesn't go right in to it. Right. So that was the beginning of my healing. That was the beginning of going deeper into research, what was already out there, and researching it on such a deep level of not only the physical ramifications, but the long-term effects of it, the post-abortion stress, the PAS, the PTSD part of it, that I could then reflect back over the last 10, 11 years, because I already had my 3 children by then, and see how it had played out in how I was as a wife and how I was as a mom, how it had played out in my pregnancies after that. And so many dots lit up, and then they just started to connect over the years of continuing to do the research for this, and then having the opportunity to be in front of other women that are facing the same crisis, because it is a crisis. If you're not excited and sharing the fact that you're pregnant, I'm pregnant, yay, then it is a crisis.
How did you see it impact how it influenced how you parented your children up until the point where you started to heal and recover from the trauma?
I think I was disconnected. I was a disconnected mom for a while because then I had my focus still on school, still justifying that I need to go for my master's, need to get my doctorate, need to make something of myself, need to make sure there's a reason why I had that abortion. All the more hiding the secret of the abortion. And then I started to work at a birthing center with a midwife, out of hospital birthing center, and had become a doula at that time. So this was all just the beginning of acknowledging how the abortion had affected me. In my marriage, it created probably a sexual dysfunction. I was so scared of getting pregnant. So that affected our marriage. Plus, my husband at the time had had 2 abortions of his own. He would never acknowledge that that was a trauma that he carried in. But the more research I did, I could see it on him.
With the research that you've done, how do you see it impacting men? And is there a difference between how it impacts men and how it impacts women, in your opinion?
Absolutely. I've had the honor of doing many post-abortion healing groups, and one, with men, and have talked to men who have experienced abortion. We as women, it affects our femininity. We don't even realize it. Men, it affects their masculinity. They lose their voice, their masculine voice. They lose that assurance that they are the protector in the relationship. Maybe it's not the same relationship that they had pregnancy and the abortion in, but there's still this lack of being a protector that they carry with them, which was fascinating to me, because to see the other side of how they didn't protect, how they didn't step up, how they failed, which is the words that they use, how they failed their girlfriend or even their wife at the time, because this isn't only a single woman issue. Married couples have abortions too. How they failed in protecting their wife and then protecting their child that was aborted, it affects them. And to actually see the men become emotional and the regret that they had was, for me, healing on a different level.
Don't you think a lot of men just kind of feel this cultural pressure to be politically correct and to back down because, well, it's the right thing to do, is very counterintuitive for them, but it's to say, well, it's your body and it's your choice.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And so there's a direct assault in that cultural belief system that we've created.
It's
Thank you, Margaret Sanger.
Masculinating men.
We've castrated our men, women.
Yes.
We have, this feminist movement has castrated our men. Men, not that there's any men watching this, maybe just my dad, but forgive us.
And maybe my boys. I'm sorry.
It was an extended process of healing for you. I mean, even just for the veil to be lifted off your eyes, for you to be able to see what you had participated in, and then to acknowledge how it actually impacted you. After you went through this process of healing, how did you notice it start to change the way that you parented your 3 boys?
Well, like you said, it's a process. It's not a one-time, oh, I'm healed, I can move on. It is a slow uncovering. It was probably a good 14 years of healing, slow healing. I think in raising my boys, it was with Missy here, who was doing a conference, and I took my oldest son with me. He's sitting there next to me listening, and all of a sudden he turns to me and he says, Mom, have you ever had an abortion? And I remember just like looking at him and thinking to myself, really, God, right now? And I don't want to be a liar. I don't want to lie to my boys. You ask me a question, you might not like the truth, but I'm going to give you the truth. And then we need to talk about the truth. So there's no deception in it at all. So I looked at him and I said, let's go out into the hallway and talk. So he was just kind of like, oh, okay. Sit down next to him. And I told him, I said, yeah, I had an abortion before I got pregnant with you. And, told him a little bit about the story, enough for a 14-year-old to know about. His response was, Mom, I'm sad because I thought I was the oldest, and I thought it was special because I was the oldest, but I'm not the oldest.
Wow. So a mother's abortion will impact even her children,
Yes.
her born children.
And many women who have abortions don't tell their children that they have a sibling.
Now, isn't
They
there
don't
one of your
share.
boys that had a feeling?
Oh yes,
Wasn't it the
number
middle
2?
one?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Knows things.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah, I picked him up. So got through the first son. You know, like whew. You know, like that was a little bit of a like, okay, he knows. You know, like with abortion healing, it can't be a secret. It can't be a secret. If you want to heal it, you just got to reveal it.
Amen.
You know? Truly.
Amen.
Amen to that. And I picked up my middle son. I think maybe he was in 8th grade at the time.
13.
13, 14.
Right on
Great point.
puberty.
Oh, yeah.
We're making connections even right
Connections.
now. We're connectors.
How to talk to your children about abortion, right here. And I picked him up from school, and I'm driving him. He turns to me. I'm driving, and he's like, "Mom, have you had an abortion?" Just out of the blue. And I remember driving like, again, God, like really right now? And I said, yeah, I did. And his response was, I knew it. I was so surprised that there was no anger or no judgment, that he was most excited that he had known this.
Her middle son and I are quite similar.
Yeah.
And as a prophetic person, I can say that as children, when you have that prophetic inclination and you pick up on things and then it's validated, it builds up your confidence.
Yes.
Right?
Sure,
It's like,
yes.
I saw this, I heard this, I sensed it right. Whereas if you're in a family that lives in secrets and shame and covers things up, and you're a very prophetic child, some people use the term intuitive, and you're sensing these things and you try to bring them to the light because prophets bring things to the light, and the family in shame or fear or secrecy says no. Now what that does for that child is it creates an insecurity within them. They lose the confidence of their own gifting. So I think for him at 13, when he's like, I feel this, and then he confronts you about it and you validated it, you were validating who he was as a young man and his natural intuitive gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True fact.
But he never got angry with you for the abortion.
He did not get angry at me. And then my third son, after I was divorced, and I would say he was maybe a little bit younger, maybe 10-ish. And he was reading this book. I think it was a book that you ended up giving us.
Oh my gosh, I triggered so much of this.
A through Z, you know, the alphabet of, you know, how to talk to your child. And I was sitting in or laying down in my bed reading something, and he's over in his bed. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's like, Mom, have you had an abortion? And I'm reading and I'm thinking, what? Like, this is coming up now. And I looked over at him and I'm like, what are you reading? And then he holds up the book.
You're like, Tanya.
And I was like, you just got to the A's, huh? And I said, yeah. And I shared the story, shared my experience, told him that I had already shared it with his brothers. And Mr. Lovechild comes over and gives me a hug, and he says he's so sorry that I had to experience that. So the level of freedom that I felt after all of my children now knew, and there was no secret, it totally changed the dynamic of my family forever.
We both believe that in order for there to be true intimacy, we must keep nothing hidden. Now, with what you've studied about perinatal psychology and the womb and the fetal experience, I remember you saying something about how abortion alters the atmosphere of the womb.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Your body carries the trauma of anything that happens. So any kind of sexual abuse, our words that we speak over ourselves towards our bodies, our body carries that wound. Even if I had kept it a secret, there would have been some kind of knowing for each of my boys that was growing in this space that had been traumatized, that had been violated, that a life had died within there. You know that if you go to a house where a trauma has happened and you go in there and you just feel the atmosphere of that. You
like
know,
you hear about people who go and visit Germany and they go to
Exactly.
those places
Yeah.
and the heaviness from the trauma is still felt. So what you're saying is in the research you've done,
not only with abortion,
not only with abortion,
stillborn.
Stillborn.
Miscarriage. Same kind of, spiritual, emotional atmosphere.
I say this a lot, Michelle. The opposite side of shame is pride. Two sides to the same coin. And so whereas some women will internalize it and process it through shame, and they will keep that abortion experience private, would you agree with me that then there are other women that, in the opposite of that, become very prideful, and then they become huge advocates for pro-choice, and they're actually motivated by their own brokenness?
Yeah, that was disturbing to me. I think the first time I saw some video where she was walking her audience through her abortion. She, like, I'm having an abortion here, we're going to go to the clinic, and then she comes out of the abortion, and it's just like, yeah, that was so simple. And my heart is just watching this breaking, knowing that, oh girl, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Right now, it's you just fixed a problem in your mind, and it's going to play out. It's going to play out in some way, shape, or form throughout your life. You may never connect the dots to it. You may never see the connection to it, but it will play out in your life in some way, shape, or form. God is the creator of life. I always thought, oh, well, abortion is okay in cases of rape, in cases of incest, yes, then it's justified, So I'm pro-life, but God, you're the creator. You create life. Satan can't create life. So even though this baby was created in a way that was not what is best suited, it was still a life created, and you are the creator of life. And then that brought me into reading testimonies of adults who were conceived either through incest or conceived out of rape, and their journey, their story of knowing how they were conceived. But here's this human being who is now an adult, who's living a beautiful life, not aborted or not justified in the aborting this because it wasn't conceived. This child was conceived either through rape or incest, and that is a very, very touchy subject.
That is.
Especially with Christians.
Michelle talked about it from a spiritual perspective, but from a psychological perspective, for the woman who is raped and gets pregnant, that's a trauma. For her to go and then have an abortion, she is now covering up that first trauma with another trauma. It's a double trauma to the soul, to the body. Women who statistically choose to keep that baby, carry it to term, and either parent or place the child for adoption end up having a much higher recovery rate than women who choose to abort. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I think for me, when I am asked about abortion, what I have also discovered, you have so many pro-life advocates out there that it's all about the baby, the baby, the baby. Honestly, I came to a realization with God where, God, you save the baby. It's about saving the mom who had the abortion, about saving the woman who now carries this knowingly or unknowingly in her emotions, in her spiritual DNA, in her physical body. It's about saving her and telling her that, hey, you can heal from this. You can heal from this. It's not just about saying, I'm sorry I did that. That's maybe just the first step, itty bitty little band-aid, but there's so much more to it, and it's so brave, it's so courageous, it's so life-giving to actually step into healing from your abortion. I know the freedom I have. I know the freedom. I know what it feels like. I know that it's an offer that God gives to you for freedom to live in it, to share it, to heal from it. So I get excited, and I have to contain that sometimes because I know it's a journey, and in that journey there is a lot of sorrow, admitting that you were deceived, not only by the world, but by yourself. So, I seriously welcome anybody who wants to go a little deeper, and it's going to be a little bit scary, and it's going to be a lot of bit uncomfortable, but freedom, if we want to live free, 100% free, not 75% free, not 89% free, not I'm free except nobody knows about this secret, 100% free, where the enemy has no hold on you anymore because you've exposed it. You're not holding on to it. Then take the step, because who wouldn't want to live free? I'm excited to meet my baby in heaven.
Now, you gave your baby a name.
I gave my baby a name. My baby's name is Daniel Michael.
Daniel
Michael. And his brothers, all three of my boys, know his name. And they're going to see him someday too. I believe that. I believe it with all my heart.
How would you feel about offering our Blossoming Beauties tribe a post-abortion recovery group?
I would be honored to do that.
All right, so I'm going to include some information on here on how you can get a hold of me, and I can put you guys in touch. I really believe that for our nation to heal, it's going to take individuals like you and me and Michelle that are willing to step out of the shame, push past the fear, tear down the deception, and start walking in the truth so that we can be healthy, whole, and free. And as we change, our families will change, our marriages will change,
generations will change.
I mean, just look at where we've come in the last 50 years since abortion was legalized, since the sexual revolution, since the legalization and promotion of pornography, since all of these things. People think we've progressed.
We've regressed.
And now we're starting to see the fruit of it. But unfortunately, most of us are not making the connection because we're still under that cloak of deception. And so that's why we're sharing our stories so vulnerably and transparent with you. It's because we haven't walked into the fullness of freedom yet, but we are fixed on it. And we want to get as many people to come with us on that journey as possible. Thank you for doing this, friend. I love you so much.
I love you too.
She's gonna come back. That's gonna be it for today, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions and you're comfortable being vulnerable, like we're being vulnerable and trying to create a space of vulnerability, leave it in the comment below, because I guarantee you if you're thinking about it, somebody else is thinking about it too. And it takes courage to be honest. And if you're interested in either going through a sexual trauma healing small group or an abortion recovery small group, this is something that we've led other women through, and we would love to help you walk through the process. Make sure you reach out to me, and we would be honored to do that with you. Until next time, we guys love you guys. We guys love you guys.
We guys love you guys.
Mucho
We girls
much.
love you girls.
Blow them the kiss.
You saw.